I never thought I'd end up working the night shift at a Dollar Tree in a town like Cold Creek. When I was younger, I had this mental picture of my future. Not extravagant, just steady. A teaching job, maybe a modest house in a neighborhood where the lawns were kept tidy, a dog that greeted me at the door. But life didn't exactly hand out the future I imagined. After Dad passed away from a stroke in 2020, I came back home to help Mom keep the mortgage afloat. Cold Creek wasn't where I wanted to be. It was one of those half-forgotten towns tucked along a state highway in North Carolina, where the gas station doubles as the only decent coffee stop and gossip spreads faster than the weather changes. I'd been working odds and ends, warehouse shifts, janitorial work, when a friend told me the Dollar Tree on Main Street needed someone for their night restock shift. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. The first few weeks were fine. The store was dead quiet after closing, just me, 2 other night workers, and Harold, the night manager. We'd unpack boxes, shelve stock, and try to get out before sunrise. It was lonely work, but in a weird way I liked the emptiness. That changed around the time I started noticing the ads. It started small. One Friday during our 3 a.m. break, I was sitting in the stockroom scrolling Instagram on my phone, sipping one of those canned Starbucks drinks from the cooler. My coworker Marlene was talking about her daughter's obsession with slime-making kits, and I joked that she was probably one of those kids driving up glue prices. We laughed. The next day I'm scrolling again and there it was. An ad for Elmer's glue in Spanish with a little "Ships from Mexico" tag under it. I thought it was a glitch. But then it kept happening. I'd get ads for things we had just talked about in the store. At first, I brushed it off as coincidence. But then the ads got oddly specific. One night, Harold and I were stocking seasonal decor. He pointed to a box of cheap knockoff Halloween masks and said, "These things freak me out." My mom swore they reminded her of some old true crime case. We talked about it for maybe 2 minutes. 2 days later, I'm on my couch at home, and my YouTube autoplay serves me a documentary thumbnail with the exact mask on the cover. Same weird paint job, same cracked smile. By the 3rd week, I started to feel that prickling sensation in the back of my neck, the one you get when you know you're being watched. It wasn't just at home anymore. One night on break, Marlene lit a cigarette behind the loading dock and said, "Hey, doesn't it creep you out how quiet this street is?" I nodded. She leaned in. "I think my phone listens to me. Last night I told my husband we should get a pressure washer, and the next morning, bam, Facebook ad for the exact model I mentioned." I tried to laugh it off, but I couldn't hide the fact that the same thing had been happening to me. "Dude," she said, flicking ash. "Don't think too hard about it or you'll go crazy." But I did think about it. My paranoia spiked one night after a particularly slow shift. I got home, tossed my Dollar Tree cap on the counter, and sat down with my flip phone. Yes, I'd kept an old one, mostly because my smartphone had started acting strange. I'd wake up to find apps open that I hadn't touched, or voice recordings in my files I didn't remember making. I told myself maybe I'd pocket-dialed something, but deep down I knew better. That night, I powered up the smartphone to check my email. As soon as the screen lit, I noticed the camera indicator flicker for a split second, like something was recording. Then a sound file appeared in my downloads. I hadn't touched anything. I opened it. Static at first. Then faintly, my voice. "These things freak me out." Followed by Harold's voice, muffled but clear. My mom swore they reminded her of some old true crime case. It was our exact conversation from the store. The next day at work, I cornered Harold in the stockroom. "Do you ever feel like your phone's listening to you?" I asked. He gave a short laugh. "Feel like? It is listening to you. Everybody's is. Don't sweat it. Just don't say anything worth selling." "But how?" He cut me off. "Algorithms, man. That's all it is. The stores we work for do it too. You think that mystery shopper training was just for fun? They track how many times you mention a product. They push ads based on your conversations." It was meant to sound casual, but something about the way he said it made my stomach knot. Over the next week, things escalated. I'd leave the store at 5 a.m., and a white van would be parked across the street, engine running. Always the same one. No logos, no plates on the front. I told myself it was just some early morning delivery guy, but it never pulled up to any building. It just sat there. One night I tested something. On break, I told Marlene, loudly, that I was thinking about buying a specific kind of antique wall clock. I made sure to say it in as much detail as possible. 1920s oak case, Roman numerals, brass pendulum. By the time I got home, Instagram was serving me ads for antique clock auctions in towns I'd never heard of. That's when I stopped bringing my smartphone to work. I wish I could say that fixed it. But 2 nights later, I was shelving cleaning supplies when the store's PA system crackled, which was weird because it was never used after hours. Then I heard my own voice come through the ceiling speakers, distorted but recognizable. Creeps me out how quiet this street is. I froze. That was me talking to Marlene. 2 weeks ago. Word for word. The speakers cut out. When I told Harold, he didn't even flinch. You know there are mics in the register scanners, right? Store security updates. Everything's connected. But why play it back? I asked. He gave me this look, part warning, part pity, and said, sometimes it's not about selling you something. The last night I worked there, I was closing up alone. Harold had called out. Marlene had left early. I was sweeping aisle 3 when I heard a faint hum, not from the lights but from my apron pocket. My flip phone was on. I hadn't touched it. The screen was black, but the mic icon was lit. I pressed a button. Nothing. I yanked the battery out. When I turned toward the front doors, the white van was parked across the street again. This time the engine wasn't running, but the driver's door was open. I don't remember locking up. I just remember running to my car, hands shaking so bad I nearly dropped my keys. When I looked back, the van door was shut. But I swear I saw someone standing in the store's darkened doorway. Someone wearing the same cracked smile mask Harold had joked about weeks ago. I quit the next morning. Now I keep every device I own wrapped in foil when I'm not using it. I've stopped using social media. I pay cash for everything. But sometimes at night my old smartphone, the one I thought I'd destroyed, shows up in places I didn't leave it. And last week it played me a recording while I was half asleep. It was me in the stockroom saying, "Don't think too hard about it or you'll go crazy." Only, I never said that, Ed. I never planned on working the night shift at a Dollar Tree in Sycamore Heights, a sleepy little town in North Carolina, where nothing much happened after 7 p.m. If you had told me 5 years ago that I'd be here, 24 years old, stocking shelves full of off-brand cereal and cleaning aisles that smelled faintly of bleach and expired potato chips, I would have laughed. I used to picture myself working at a design firm in Charlotte, maybe sipping overpriced coffee in an office full of exposed brick and plants I'd never water. But life has a way of quietly redirecting you when you're not looking. After my dad died in late 2021, my mom's health started to spiral. She needed help, and the only way to be around for her was to move back home. Problem was, jobs in Sycamore Heights weren't exactly falling into my lap. I took what I could get, and what I could get was a night shift job at Dollar Tree. It wasn't so bad at first. The store closed at 9 p.m., and the rest of my shift was just stocking and cleaning until 1 a.m. It was quiet, too quiet sometimes, but I liked the lack of customers. My coworkers were fine. Most nights it was just me and Tyler, the assistant manager, who was more interested in scrolling through TikTok in the break room than actually managing anything. That night, the night it all started, was supposed to be routine. It was a Thursday in late October, and we were already prepping for the Christmas section. Tyler was in the back pretending to do inventory. I was restocking the seasonal aisle with glitter-covered ornaments when my phone buzzed in my back pocket. I usually ignored personal text during my shift, but it wasn't a text. It was a DM notification from Instagram. The username was something I didn't recognize. Perfect Forevers, with a Z at the end. No profile picture. The request preview just said, "Check this out." Normally, I'd swipe it away. I'd had my share of creepy DMs before, random guys sending heart emojis or scammy links promising followers. But for some reason, maybe out of boredom, I tapped it open. Inside was a link to another Instagram profile. I don't know why I pressed it. Curiosity, maybe. It loaded to a grid of photos that, at first, didn't seem all that unusual, until I realized what I was looking at. They were all girls. Young girls. Some looked like they could be in middle school, others in their late teens or early 20s. None of the pictures seemed posed. In fact, every single one looked like it had been taken without the person knowing. On buses, in parks, walking down sidewalks, waiting at crosswalks. My stomach tightened. The further I scrolled, the creepier it got. A shot of a girl tying her shoe on a college campus. Another of a girl browsing in a small grocery store. One that looked like it had been taken from behind a bush, catching a girl mid-stride on a jogging path. I braced myself for gross, perverted comments, but there weren't any. Instead, there were vague messages like "good work" or 500. Some were just numbers. 200, 750, 1,000. All from accounts with no profile pictures and 0 posts. I felt this prickling unease crawl up my spine. This wasn't just some random creep's Instagram, it felt organized. I took a screenshot and sent it to my friend Haley, who was one of the few people in town I still hung out with. She replied almost instantly. "Haley, WTF is that?" Me. IDK just got DM'd the link. Haley. Report that. Seriously. Me. Yeah, just did. I didn't think much more about it. I had a cart full of boxes to unload and a deadline to get them on the shelves before Tyler decided to check in. It wasn't until almost 11:45 when I was on break in the stockroom that Haley texted again. "Haley, wait. Why is there a picture of you on there?" I blinked at my phone, rereading the message 3 times before my finger started moving. Me. Huh? Haley. I swear. Scroll to the bottom row. My chest felt heavy as I tapped the link again. I scrolled past the rows of strangers, my thumb moving faster, my breathing getting tighter, until I saw it. Bottom right corner. It was me. The picture was from maybe 2 nights ago. I was locking up the store, fumbling with the keys, wearing my green Dollar Tree vest. The angle. It was taken from across the parking lot, maybe from inside a car. I stared at it for a good 30 seconds before I realized my hands were shaking. Me. Holy shit. Haley. That's not all. Scroll up. I did. The newest upload was a photo of me from that night, earlier that evening to be exact. I was outside on my smoke break, leaning against the dumpster out back. The angle was close, almost too close. It must have been taken from behind the fence. My mouth went dry. I remembered hearing something then. Leaves crunching. I thought it was a raccoon. I immediately called Haley. "Okay, what the hell is going on?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice from cracking. "Why are there pictures of you on some stalker account?" She shot back. "You need to call the cops right now." No, maybe it's just some prank." "A prank? Someone is taking pictures of you at work, Mia. This is not a prank." The stockroom felt suddenly smaller, the flickering fluorescent lights buzzing too loud in my ears. I told Tyler I had to leave early, lied about a family emergency, and clocked out. I drove home with one hand on the wheel, one gripping my phone, refreshing the page over and over. By the time I got inside my apartment, the account was gone. Vanished. Not just blocked. Gone. But I couldn't stop thinking about those numbers in the comments. 200, 750, 1,000. Prices. It hit me like ice water. Someone was cataloging girls, pricing them, and for whatever reason I was now on that list. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about how close that second photo had been taken. The fence out back was less than 6 feet from where I stood. Whoever it was, they had been right there. And the worst part? Dollar Tree's security cameras had been broken for months. The next night I called in sick. I couldn't bring myself to walk into that parking lot again. But every time my phone buzzes now, I can't help but wonder if the account will pop back up. If there will be another picture of me or of someone else I know. I never thought I'd end up working the graveyard shift at a Dollar Tree in Queens. When I was in high school, I used to picture myself leaving New York for college somewhere warmer, somewhere slower, maybe North Carolina or Florida. But life has this way of letting you plan the routes while it quietly rearranges the destination. After my dad passed in 2021, I stayed in the city to help my mom keep the apartment. Rent in our neighborhood had been climbing for years, and she'd never lived anywhere else since moving from Puerto Rico in the late 80s. I picked up whatever work I could find, grocery store cashier, unloading trucks at a bodega, but nothing lasted. Bills stacked up like the snow piles in February, and the Dollar Tree job with its night shift pay bump felt like the only thing keeping us afloat. The store was on Junction Boulevard, wedged between a laundromat and a shuttered diner. At night, the street was almost unrecognizable, the neon signs reflected in puddles, the distant hum of traffic from the Long Island Expressway, and every so often, the faint laughter from the hookah bar 2 blocks down. It wasn't glamorous. The floors were dull and permanently sticky in places, the fluorescent lights hummed loud enough to make your teeth ache, and the heating system had a mind of its own. But it was steady work. I'd sweep the aisles, restock candy, break down boxes, and help the occasional late-night customer who wandered in for snacks or laundry detergent. The problem was, working nights also meant isolation. I lost touch with most of my friends. Meeting people in person became rare. Unless I wanted to chat with the guy who collected bottles from the recycling bin out back, my social life was entirely online. That's how I ended up spending most of my breaks scrolling through Instagram or Tinder. One Tuesday night in early February during my 1 a.m. lunch break, I got a new follow request from someone named Lena. Her profile picture was enough to make me pause mid-chew. Light brown hair, green eyes, a little smirk like she knew exactly what she was doing. She looked real, but I'd been burned by fake accounts before. I tapped into her page. She had about 3,800 followers, followed maybe 200 people. Her photos went back at least 2 years. Not the random grab bag of stolen images that scream catfish. The likes and comments looked legit, except for one thing. Every single comment was from men, and not just guys her age. Older men, some clearly in their 40s or 50s, dropping fire emojis or "you're gorgeous" under every post. Still, curiosity got the better of me. I followed her back. Almost instantly, she DM'd me. Lena. Hey, I saw you on Tinder. You're cute. That made sense. I had my Instagram in my Tinder bio. We started talking. She told me she was 21, lived a few neighborhoods over, worked part-time in retail. She asked me about my job and I kept it light. Just Dollar Tree night shift, nothing glamorous. She posted a new selfie around midnight, asked me to like and comment. I did, just a couple fire emojis. She liked my comment immediately. Then I noticed something odd. On that same picture, an older guy had commented, "Damn girl, how old are you?" She'd replied, 25. 25. She'd just told me 21. My stomach tightened. I scrolled further back. Still no female friends tagged, no candid group shots. Just her, perfectly posed, or occasional blurry night-out pics with women who weren't tagged at all. By the next night, I was more cautious. But we kept chatting, and that's when she asked what I was doing after work. "I've got the place to myself," I said before I could think better of it. "Mom's staying at my aunt's in the Bronx tonight." Lena. Oh? Maybe I should come by. She asked for my address, just to see how far it was. I hesitated, then sent it. Lena. Only like 15 minutes from me. We bantered a little more, then she said, Cool, I'll come." But a few minutes later, she asked again how old I was. I told her. Lena. I'm 21. Now she was back to 21. That's when I remembered the 25 comment. Something didn't add up. I told her I had to run to help a customer and put my phone down. 10 minutes later, my DMs blew up. 3 random accounts, each with fewer than 50 followers, all with profile pics that looked pulled from stock images. Random account 1. Unblock Lena. Random account 2. Why did you do that? Random account 3. You'll regret this. I blocked them all, heart racing. The worst part? I'd sent my address. That night, I got home just before 3 a.m. The streets were quiet except for the occasional hiss of a passing bus. I double-locked the front door, checked the windows. Everything seemed normal. I stayed up for a while, watching TV to calm down. Eventually, I shut everything off and went to bed. Sleep never came easy to me. But that night it was impossible. Every creak of the building made me sit up. Around 4:30 I must have dozed off, because I woke with that strange delayed awareness you get when a noise pulls you from sleep. The radiator clicked, but underneath it I swore I heard something else. A shuffle. I sat up. In the far corner of my room, near my closet, something was standing. At first my brain rejected it. Just a shadow. Just my jacket on the chair. But then I saw the face. Pale, grinning, teeth just catching the faint light from the street lamp outside. I couldn't move for 2 seconds that felt like hours. Then adrenaline hit and I bolted, barefoot out the bedroom, through the living room, flinging open the door into the freezing February night. I pounded on my neighbor's door until my hands hurt. When he opened it, I practically collapsed inside, stammering that someone was in my room. We called 911. The NYPD searched the apartment top to bottom. Both doors locked. All windows locked, except one in the kitchen that I'd forgotten to latch. No footprints in the snow outside. No signs of forced entry. One officer said it might have been a sleep-wake hallucination, common when waking suddenly in the night. But I knew what I saw. The grin, the way it didn't move, the way it just watched. I stayed with my neighbor until morning. By the time the sun rose, Lena's account was gone, deleted, or maybe just renamed. Either way, I never worked another night shift without checking the locks twice, and I never ever put my address in a DM again. I never planned on working the night shift at the Dollar Tree in Norcross, Maine. If you'd asked me at 18 what my life was going to look like, I'd have said something about studying graphic design in Portland, maybe working for an ad agency, traveling, living in a little loft apartment with exposed brick and a plant I'd inevitably forget to water. But life veered off course fast. In 2002, my mom was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and by the next spring, she'd had to stop working entirely. I was 21, juggling 2 part-time jobs, trying to keep the rent on our duplex paid, and driving her to Bangor every other week for appointments. College became this vague, someday idea. By the winter of 2004, bills had stacked like bad Jenga pieces. My friend Tricia mentioned the Dollar Tree over on Washington Avenue was looking for an overnight stalker, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 5 nights a week. "It's not bad," she said, "if you don't mind being bored." Bored, I could handle. The rent I couldn't. So that's how I ended up here. Green apron, keys clipped to my belt loop, a name tag that read Jared in block letters. Norcross wasn't a big town, population maybe 4,000, but Washington Avenue ran like its spine. Gas stations, a Dunkin', a few mom-and-pop restaurants, and tucked between a shuttered video rental place and an abandoned furniture outlet, our Dollar Tree. Day shifts were chaos. Parents with carts full of party decorations, contractors grabbing cheap cleaning supplies, elderly women arguing over coupon terms. But after 10 at night, it was another world entirely. The only people I saw regularly after midnight were Rick, the manager, mid-40s, always smelled faintly of pipe tobacco, worked evenings until midnight. Lana, the part-timer who stocked greeting cards and gossip magazines, gone by 11, and occasionally a police cruiser idling in the lot, killing time. Most nights it was just me, the hum of the freezers, and the squeak of the mop bucket wheels. My first night alone was a Tuesday. The air outside was damp and raw, the kind of spring chill that cuts through a sweatshirt. Rick left at midnight after locking the office and giving me the usual checklist. End caps look good. Mop the front aisles. Dumpster run before 4 if you can swing it. He hesitated before heading out the door. And, hey, keep the back door locked when you're out there. Don't prop it open. Last year some kid from the high school thought it was funny to chuck fireworks in the dumpster while Kathy was standing there. I nodded, not thinking much of it. By 2:15 a.m., I'd restocked the seasonal aisle, plastic Easter eggs, neon baskets, faced the shelves, and swept up the day's debris. The lot outside was nearly empty, just one streetlight flickering near the entrance. Across Washington Avenue, the old gas station sat like a skeleton, sign faded, pumps wrapped in yellow caution tape. Around 2:45, I decided to haul the trash to the dumpster behind the store. 3 black bags, heavy with cardboard and plastic wrap. The back lot was lit by a single buzzing lamp that cast more shadow than light. Beyond the dumpster, the pavement dissolved into the dark tree line. I'd never liked how quiet it was back there. The way sound seemed swallowed up instantly. I just heaved the first bag in when I heard it. Not a voice. Not footsteps. A slow, irregular click, like metal tapping pavement. I froze, scanning the shadows. Nothing. I told myself it was probably the wind knocking something over and shoved the rest of the bags in. Still, my pace back to the rear door was brisker than before. 10 minutes later, I was at the counter, flipping through the nightly sales log, when headlights swept across the front windows. A car pulled into the far side of the lot, engine low and steady. Not in front of the store, off to the left, half shielded by the sidewall. It idled there. I stepped back so I wasn't fully visible from the glass and peeked from the corner of the counter. Silver sedan. Rust around the wheel wells. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, hood pulled up, hands in his pockets. He didn't come toward the entrance. Instead, he walked along the side of the building, slow and deliberate, like he was counting the steps. I moved to the aisle nearest the door, pretending to straighten shelves while keeping him in my periphery. He stopped under the streetlight, bent down and picked something up from the ground. For a moment he just stood there holding it. Then, without looking anywhere else, he turned his head and locked eyes with me through the glass. Even at that distance I felt the precision of it. He knew exactly where I was. I grabbed the store phone and dialed the non-emergency police line. Norcross Police, this is dispatch. Yeah, hi, this is Jared at Dollar Tree. There's a guy in the lot acting kind of weird. Silver sedan, dark hoodie. Could you send someone to take a look? The dispatcher asked for the plate. I admitted I couldn't see it. All right, we'll send a unit by, she said, sounding calm. By the time a cruiser rolled through 5 minutes later, the sedan was gone. Officer Miller stepped inside, hands resting on his utility belt. Someone giving you trouble? I told him what I'd seen. He frowned. We've had a couple calls like that tonight, might be nothing, but... He glanced at the door. Lock it if you feel off. We'll keep an eye out. It didn't happen again for a few days. Then, on Friday, just past 3 a.m., I caught movement in the reflection of the front glass. Same sedan, same place in the lot. This time, he didn't get out right away. I picked up the phone but didn't dial. Finally, the driver's door cracked open, and he stepped out. Hood up. Same slow walk. This time he stopped in front of the store, but didn't try the door. Instead, he leaned down, placed something on the pavement, and walked back to his car. He drove off with the headlights off, disappearing into the dark stretch of Washington Avenue. I waited a long minute before stepping outside. On the ground, right where he'd stood, was my name tag. The one I'd lost earlier in the week and hadn't been able to find. 2 nights later, I saw the article online. Gas station clerk assaulted, suspect at large. The details made my skin crawl. The man hadn't taken any money, just the clerk's employee badge. I made it one more week before quitting. I told Rick I couldn't hack the hours, but the truth was simpler. That silver sedan hadn't been back. Yet. But I knew the next time it did, it wouldn't just be to drop something off. I boxed my apron and keys, left them on the counter, and didn't look back when the automatic doors slid shut behind me. But some nights, when I'm driving down Washington Avenue late, I can still picture those headlights clicking off, the car rolling silent into the shadows waiting. I was 20 years old the first winter I worked the overnight shift at the Dollar Tree on Riverbend Avenue in Oak Hollow, Washington. It wasn't where I pictured myself at that age, not after 3 semesters of community college and a head full of vague plans to study environmental science. But tuition money doesn't appear out of thin air. My mom's part-time hours at the hospital barely covered rent after my dad's back injury put him on permanent disability, so I took what I could get. The Dollar Tree was open until midnight on weekdays and 2 a.m. on weekends, which made it a strange mix of late-night college kids, graveyard shift workers grabbing snacks, and the occasional quiet, lonely soul who wandered the aisles until we had to shoo them out. I didn't mind it at first. The pay was steady, and the store felt safe. Bright fluorescent lights, a small crew I liked, and a manager, Carl, who reminded me of an uncle that cracked corny jokes to hide the fact that he actually cared about people. I normally worked Friday through Sunday nights, but in early February of 2002, I swapped shifts with my coworker Denise so I could go to my cousin's engagement dinner. That decision has replayed in my head for over 20 years. That night, the rain came down in slow, steady sheets. I remember standing outside the restaurant after dinner, my jacket collar turned up against the wind when my old flip phone buzzed. The number was the store. I almost didn't answer. Shane? It was Carl. But his voice didn't sound like Carl. It was flatter, lower, like someone had pulled the air out of him. I need you to come down here, now. Something happened. What happened? I asked, stepping under the overhang. He paused long enough that my heart started thudding in my ears. They're gone. What do you mean, gone? I'll explain when you get here, just come. The drive from my apartment to the store was only 8 minutes, but I remember every streetlight like it was a freeze-frame photo. The rain made everything slick and blurred. I turned onto Riverbend Avenue and saw them. 2 police cruisers angled across the entrance, lights spinning in slow, disorienting circles. Another one sat by the loading dock. When I pulled up, an officer stepped into the beam of my headlights and held out a hand. Before I could roll my window down, Carl appeared behind him, waving me through. He didn't look like himself. His baseball cap was gone, his hair plastered to his forehead. Inside the lot, yellow tape stretched across the glass entrance doors, fluttering in the damp air. My boots splashed through shallow puddles as I crossed. Carl met me halfway. They're gone, Shane, he repeated, and his voice cracked. Denise, Gary, and Luann. My stomach sank. Gone? He didn't answer, just turned toward the store. The Dollar Tree looked wrong in the dark. The overheads were off, and the green glow of the emergency exit signs cast strange shadows on the aisles. A detective in a rain jacket nodded at us, then pointed toward the register area. I saw the drawers first, pulled out, and left gaping, coins scattered on the counter. Behind them, the small office door stood open, the safe yawning wide. They took about $7,000, Carl muttered. $7,000 was a lot for our store. We didn't even keep that much in cash unless a deposit hadn't gone out yet. We moved past the stockroom door, and that's when the smell hit me. Gunpowder mixed with something faintly metallic. My breath caught. All 3 of them were on the floor, face down, arms tucked under their chests like they'd been told to get down. Each had a small, neat wound in the back of the head. No blood spatter on the walls. Whoever did it had fired close and clean. I turned and stumbled into the alley behind the store, bracing a hand against the wet brick. I retched until there was nothing left, the rain soaking my jacket. Detectives questioned me for hours in a cramped back office, scribbling notes, tapping pens against clipboards. Who had keys? Who'd been fired recently? Who owed money? One name came up more than once: Darren Blake. Darren had managed the store until last August, when Carl caught him borrowing from the register. Darren didn't throw a fit when he was let go. He didn't yell or slam doors. He just looked at each of us one by one, like he was burning our faces into his memory. By dawn, the rain had stopped. My mom picked me up and drove me home in silence. On the TV that night, the local news called it the worst triple homicide in Oak Hollow history. They said police believed Darren had shown up before closing with at least one other person, forced the crew to open the safe, then marched them to the stockroom. The anchor's voice didn't even flinch when she said, "Execution style." Darren's mugshot appeared on the screen. Dark eyes, shaved head, expression flat and unreadable. The store stayed closed for nearly a month. On February 28th, a tip came in that Darren was hiding out in Spokane, but by the time the warrant cleared, he'd vanished. His girlfriend, Tara Mills, was arrested for driving the getaway car, and his cousin Marvin went down for accessory. Both took plea deals, 10 years each. Darren, still gone. Years passed. Oak Hollow got bigger, new strip malls, more traffic. But the Dollar Tree murders stayed like a scar in the middle of town. America's Most Wanted ran the case in 2003, Unsolved Mysteries in 2004. Every segment ended with the same caption: "The suspect remains at large." Last winter, the victims' families held a candlelight vigil in the parking lot. I wasn't sure why I went. Maybe I thought it would give me some closure. A cold drizzle tapped against the pop-up canopies. A folding table held framed photos. Denise in her softball uniform, Gary holding his toddler on a fishing trip, Luann in a bright red sweater, mid-laugh. The pastor asked if anyone who'd worked with them wanted to share something. My legs carried me forward before I could think. I told them how Denise once stayed an extra 2 hours to help me reset an end cap just because I looked overwhelmed. How Gary used to bring me coffee from the diner next door every night without fail. How Luann talked about going back to school for nursing and how she said, "Life's too short not to try." My voice shook, but when I stepped back, I felt a little lighter. The vigil ended, and people drifted away. I stood at the edge of the lot watching the wet asphalt gleam under the sodium lights. That's when I saw him. Tall, straight-backed, hood pulled low, hands in pockets, standing near the spot where Pump 3 used to be before they paved it over. He turned slightly, and I caught the outline of ink just above his waistband, a snake coiled in the same style Darren had tattooed on his stomach. My chest tightened. A bus rolled by, blocking my view. When it passed, the man was gone. Maybe it was just some stranger with a snake tattoo, or maybe the past had wandered back, curious to see how his work had aged. I didn't follow. I got in my truck and drove home, eyes flicking to the mirror every few seconds. No headlights followed me. But even now, sometimes when I'm driving late at night, I feel it. That same weight, just outside the circle of my headlights, keeping pace. The FBI bulletin says Darren could be living under another name, working a regular job, coaching Little League. People think fugitives vanish into the woods. More often they blend in. And every time I pass a Dollar Tree, I remember the sound of Carl's voice over the phone that night. They're gone. I never planned on spending my nights mopping linoleum floors under flickering fluorescent lights. But after my divorce last year, I needed something steady, something that kept my mind occupied and my bills paid. The night shift at the Dollar Tree on Maple Avenue in Crestview, Maine wasn't glamorous, but it offered both. Before this, I'd been a receptionist at a dentist's office for 6 years. I knew everyone's name, their kids, their dogs. But when the practice downsized, I was suddenly out of work. The alimony covered rent on my small apartment above a laundromat, but not much else. The Dollar Tree job was supposed to be temporary, 3 months, tops. Yet here I was, 8 months in, memorizing the creak in every aisle and the exact hum of the cooler fans. Most nights were predictable. At 11 p.m., I'd restock the seasonal aisle, refill the impulse buy bins by the registers, and brew a fresh pot of coffee for the occasional night owl. By midnight, the store was quiet enough that I could hear my own breathing behind the soft hum of the refrigeration units. Outside, the parking lot was a sea of empty asphalt, broken only by the dull orange glow of a single street lamp. That Thursday, just after 12:50 a.m., I was wiping down the counter while a classic hit station played low enough that the tick of the lottery machine clock felt louder. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and stale popcorn from the snack warmer. The front door chimed. A man stepped inside, maybe 5'5", wiry, with neatly combed gray hair. His khaki pants looked freshly pressed, his pale yellow button-down shirt tucked perfectly. Brown loafers scuffed just enough to seem lived in. He carried no phone, no bag, just a single folded dollar bill between two fingers. "Evenin'," I said, giving my best customer service smile. He gave me a polite nod. "Evenin'," he replied, voice low but clear. He took his time walking the candy aisle before picking up a roll of peppermints and a bottle of spring water. When he set them down, I tried to make small talk. "Quiet night for you?" I asked, scanning the barcode. "Quiet can be misleading," he said after a pause, eyes on me in a way that felt deliberate. His hazel eyes caught the fluorescent glare, unblinking. I gave an awkward laugh. Guess that's one way to put it. While the register printed his receipt, he reached for his change. That's when his hand shot forward, wrapping around my wrist. It wasn't a crushing grip, but it was steady, practiced, almost surgical in its precision. He leaned in. His breath smelled faintly of mint and something earthy like wet soil. "Be careful, miss," he said, each word deliberate. "There is a devil all the time." I froze. The receipt flapped against the drawer. Then he released me, tucked the items into his shirt pocket, and walked out. The chime sounded again as the door closed behind him. I watched through the glass, waiting for the sound of a car door, an engine, but there was nothing, just empty blacktop. For the next few nights I told myself it was nothing, just a lonely man trying to be mysterious. Still, I found myself double-checking the locks more than usual. On Monday night, a light rain streaked the windows. The store was dead quiet. Around 12:55 a.m., I'd locked the side door and started my final till count. The store closed at 1 ang, but regulars knew I'd still sell coffee while I balanced the drawer. At exactly 1:03 a.m., headlights swept across the front windows, then vanished. I looked up. A white panel van idled by the pumps. No logo, no license plates, just smooth metal where the tags should have been. My stomach tightened. Before I could move, the passenger door opened. A man in a hooded sweatshirt and black mask strode toward the entrance, pistol in hand. He pushed through the door and barked, "Register, now." My palms went up. I opened the drawer and slid the bills toward him. He scooped them up, then demanded the safe. "It's on a timer," I said, voice shaking. 12-hour lock, I can't." He cursed, spun, and bolted for the van. No headlights came on as it peeled into the rain. I hit the silent alarm. 10 minutes later, the Crestview PD was in the store. They took my statement and pulled the CCTV footage. We huddled in the back office watching the grainy video. The masked man was clear enough, but it was the driver that made my chest tighten. When the passenger door slammed, the van's dome light flicked on for a second, just long enough to show a profile. Gray hair, pale shirt collar, narrow shoulders. "That's him," I blurted. "That man from Thursday." The officers compared the clips from both nights, same khakis, same hair, same posture. They ran reports on the van from Bangor to Portsmouth. Nothing. Still, they believed me enough to bring in state troopers. 2 days later, Detective Lauren Mason called. They'd found a white panel van down an overgrown logging trail in Pine Hollow State Forest about 20 minutes east. A shoe print beside the driver's door matched one lifted from our floor. The next morning, a task force swept the surrounding woods. They found an encampment wedged between two massive boulders, a folding table, tarps strung between trees, boxes of stolen cigarettes and scratch tickets from other late-night robberies along Route 9. Huddled inside were three men, two in their 30s with records in Massachusetts and the older man. His license read, Harold Benton, 71, of Portsmouth. When they cuffed him, he said only one thing, calm as a whisper. There is a devil all the time. A week later, Mason called again. Search teams had widened the sweep. They found a second, older site, half collapsed. In the fire pit were animal bones, melted coins, and a charred driver's license belonging to a clerk who'd vanished after a Vermont holdup 3 years earlier. Benton's two partners were talking, but Benton himself stayed quiet except during the silences between questions. Moments when he thought no one was listening. Then he'd murmur numbers, dates, and that same sentence. I still work nights at Dollar Tree. Corporate policy now requires 2 clerks after midnight, but the store somehow feels emptier than ever. Sometimes, when the lot outside is silent and the hum of the coolers is all I hear, I think about Benton's eyes, steady, certain, and I wonder if he meant there is a devil all the time, or if he meant there are many. I never planned on staying in Wyndham Falls past my early 20s. It was one of those towns that looked nice in postcards but felt suffocating when you actually lived there. Quiet streets, the same faces at every corner store, and a Dollar Tree that seemed to be the epicenter of all late-night gossip. I'd come back after college when my mom's health started to decline. She needed help with her bills, and my job search had stalled anyway. I told myself it was temporary, just until I found something better. That was 2 years ago. Now I worked nights at the Dollar Tree on Ashford Road, 5 minutes from our house, where the only sounds after 10 p.m. were the hum of the cooler fans and the occasional truck passing on the highway. It was early November, the kind of cold that makes your bones ache if you stand still too long. I'd been covering the closing shifts for a month because our assistant manager quit without notice. My routine was simple: restock shelves, check the register totals, lock the doors at midnight, and mop the floor before leaving. Nights were usually uneventful. Lonely, sure, but calm. That night, I was restocking the greeting card aisle when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a DM notification from Instagram. I hardly use it anymore. My profile's basically a digital ghost town. I stopped posting after college, and now I only open the app maybe once a day to scroll through friends' updates. The message was from Tyler Mills, a guy I vaguely remembered from high school. We hadn't spoken in years. I almost ignored it, but something about the preview, "Hey, heads up," made me open it. Tyler, don't freak out, but someone's using your pictures. Fake account. I thought you should know. He sent a link. My stomach tightened before I even tapped it. The profile was using a name I didn't recognize, but the photos, God, they were mine. Some from years ago, some I'd never posted anywhere. They were pictures I'd taken on my phone and forgotten about, ones that should have been private. I felt my hands go cold. My old phone. I'd lost it 2 weeks ago when it slipped out of my jacket pocket during a late shift. I'd tried find my iPhone, but the map showed it was miles away in another part of town. It wasn't worth chasing down, at least that's what I told myself. But now it was obvious whoever had it had bypassed the lock somehow. I kept scrolling through the fake account. Around 50 followers. About 150 following. Each post had a handful of likes, some generic comments, flame emojis, nice, that kind of thing. And then I tapped the circular profile picture. The story started playing. It was a boomerang. 2 seconds looping back and forth, panning from the front of my house to my car in the driveway. My breath caught. The post was only 3 hours old. That meant they weren't just online pretending to be me. They were here. I set my phone down on the counter, my pulse pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My first instinct was to find my iPhone again. This time, the location had updated. My old phone was less than 100 feet away. Not somewhere down the street. On the property. I hit lost mode instantly, cursing myself for not doing it the night I lost it. Then I locked the store's front door and hurried to the back room to grab my jacket. When I stepped outside, the air hit like ice. My car was parked under the flickering street lamp at the edge of the lot. Across the road, the dark outline of my neighborhood sat silent. I drove home faster than I should have. The streets were empty, just my headlights cutting through the cold air. As I turned into our driveway, I saw Corey, my roommate, standing in the kitchen doorway, looking out at the backyard. His husky, Juno, was out there, barking like crazy. I didn't even take my coat off. "Corey," I said, breathless. "Someone's got my old phone. They just posted a video from outside the house." He frowned, glancing back at the yard. "You're kidding." Number it was on Instagram. "I think they're still here." He stepped outside with me. Juno's growls were low, guttural, nothing like her usual harmless yapping. She stood at the far end of the yard, facing the patch of woods that separated our property from the neighbors. "Juno, here," Corey called, but she didn't move. We walked across the frost-crunching grass. When we reached her, I grabbed her collar. My eyes scanned the tree line. That's when I saw it. Movement. A figure bolted from the bushes, sprinting into the darkness of the woods. It was so fast my brain barely processed it. No sound but the rustle of leaves. No face. No detail. Just a black outline swallowed by the trees. Corey swore under his breath. "What the hell was that?" I didn't answer. I knew exactly what it was. We took Juno inside and locked every door. My hands were still trembling when I sat down on the couch. Around 3 a.m., Juno started barking again, this time at the front door. She was staring through the glass, tail stiff, growling low. Corey joined me at the window, and for a long moment we just stood there, staring into the blackness outside. I swear the shadows felt alive, like something was watching. By morning, my old phone stopped updating on Find My iPhone. Either it was off, or it had been destroyed. I sent the fake account a direct message. "I know who you are. I'm reporting you to the police." 5 minutes later, the profile was gone. Deleted completely. It's been a week now. I've changed all my passwords. I'm careful walking to my car after work. But I still feel that prickling sensation on my neck sometimes. Like whoever was out there that night is still watching. And the worst part? I never got the phone back. For all I know, they still have everything. I was working the closing shift at the Dollar Tree off Maple Avenue, a job I'd taken mostly because it was walking distance from my apartment, and I needed something steady to cover rent. It wasn't exactly glamorous. Dusty aisles, flickering overhead lights, customers who'd argue over a missing 10 cents. But it kept me afloat. I'd been there for almost 8 months, long enough to know which regulars came in for late-night snacks, which kids tried to sneak candy, and which coworkers could be trusted to not ditch their shift. Before Dollar Tree, I used to work at a small print shop in another town. That ended after things went bad. My girlfriend, Melanie, died in a way I still can't bring myself to talk about without feeling my chest cave in. I left my hometown 2 years ago, cut off a lot of people, and rebuilt in silence. Only a few close friends know the truth. At Dollar Tree, I never brought her up. Not once. It was a Thursday night in early March and the store was dead quiet. We close at 10 p.m., but my manager often leaves me and another cashier to clean up for an extra hour. By 9:45, the only sound was the hum of the refrigerators and the faint buzz from the front sign outside. I was straightening a display of cheap plastic flowers when my phone buzzed in my back pocket. I pulled it out, expecting a text from my roommate asking about dinner, but instead the notification read, "Sophie wants to send you a message on Instagram." I frowned. I didn't recognize the name. The profile picture showed a girl with long, dark brown hair, round glasses, and a faint smile, wearing a pale green hoodie. It was an above-waist shot, normal enough, but something about her eyes made me pause. They were this deep hazel shade that felt familiar. Too familiar. Curiosity got the better of me, and I tapped it open. She'd replied to my Instagram story from earlier that day, a picture of the empty store with the caption, Closing time equals my favorite time. Her reply? Just a laughing emoji. I thought about ignoring it, but I was bored, so I typed back a simple smiley face. She responded instantly. You don't remember me, do you? My eyebrows furrowed. Me. Sorry, should I? Sophie. We met last summer. You were with your friends? Me. Where? Sophie. Silver Pines. Silver Pines? That was a small lakeside resort town about an hour from here. I had been there once, 9 months ago, for a weekend trip with some coworkers. I remembered campfires, bad motel coffee, and a rainy afternoon spent wandering the boardwalk. But I didn't remember her. Me. I don't think so. Are you sure? Sophie. Positive. You told me about your girlfriend. About what happened? My stomach tightened. That wasn't possible. I hadn't told anyone in Silver Pines about Melanie. Hell, I hadn't told anyone here except my friend Eric. Me. No way. I didn't tell anyone that. Sophie. You did. You were sitting on the dock. I was with my cousin. You said her name was Melanie, and you were drinking from one of those tiny Jack Daniels bottles. I froze in place, my phone suddenly heavier in my hands. That detail, the name, the dock, the drink, it was too specific. But I didn't remember her. At all. I pulled up her profile. About 1,400 followers. Followed 100. Pictures of her with friends, a few selfies, a bunch of aesthetic nature shots. In one she stood in front of a lake. Silver Pines Lake, I realized, wearing the same pale green hoodie from her profile picture. Me. I'm sorry, I honestly don't remember you. Sophie. That's fine, I just thought maybe we could talk again. I liked that night. There was a beat before she sent another message. Also, tell your friend Eric I'm sorry about what happened in the parking lot. I stared at that sentence for a long time. Eric? The only parking lot incident I could think of was 2 months ago at Dollar Tree. Late shift, someone slashed Eric's tire. We never figured out who did it. He never posted about it online. I hadn't even mentioned it on social media. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Me. How do you know about that? Sophie. You told me. At Silver Pines. Me. I'm telling you, I don't remember that at all. Sophie. Maybe you were drunk. It's okay. I put my phone face down on the counter and took a deep breath. This was either some elaborate catfish situation or something much worse, and the worst part was starting to feel more likely. At 10:15 I clocked out and walked to the back to grab my bag. My coworker Marissa asked if I was okay. I muttered something about being tired and headed to the parking lot. The streetlights outside were dim, casting everything in a yellow haze. My car sat near the far end of the lot, the only one besides Marissa's. Halfway to my car, my phone buzzed again. I glanced down. Sophie sent you a photo. Against my better judgment, I opened it. It was a photo of me, outside the store, taken that night. Same jacket, same beanie, same scuffed sneakers. The angle was from behind, but in the reflection of my car window I saw her. She was standing close. Too close. High cheekbones, thin lips, hazel eyes. The exact face I'd seen in my memories every time I thought of Melanie. I dropped the phone. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. Melanie had been buried in my hometown. I'd been there. I'd watched them lower the coffin. And yet, here she was. Or someone who looked so much like her that it made my vision blur. Marissa's voice snapped me back. Hey, you coming? She called from the door. I snatched up my phone, shoved it in my pocket, and forced my feet to move. I didn't check my messages until I was inside my locked apartment an hour later. The last thing Sophie had sent was a single text. I miss you. I didn't reply. I didn't sleep that night either. And the next evening, when I got to Dollar Tree, there was a small folded note taped to the front door. No name, no signature. Just 3 words written in neat slanted handwriting. See you soon. I never thought I'd end up working the night shift at a Dollar Tree in a small Texas town. When I was younger, I pictured my life going a little differently. College, a career in environmental science, maybe a house somewhere near Austin with a small garden and a dog. But reality had other plans. After my dad passed from a sudden heart attack in 2018, my mom needed help paying the mortgage on the old place in Midway Springs, a tiny town 2 hours north of Houston. I'd been living in Dallas, but the rent was eating me alive and my job at a call center felt like slow suffocation. So I packed up, came home, and told myself I'd only stay until things stabilized. That was 3 years ago. Midway Springs wasn't the kind of place you made plans in. It was the kind of place where plans came to die. There wasn't much here besides a gas station, a Dollar Tree, a few fast food joints, and a stretch of road that most people only use to get somewhere else. The Dollar Tree job was supposed to be temporary, just something to keep me afloat until I found something better. I didn't hate it, at least, not at first. The manager, Teresa, was in her early 40s, divorced, the kind of woman who'd mastered the art of multitasking while sipping from a coffee cup she never seemed to refill. There was Ray, an older stock guy who claimed he used to play bass for a semi-famous rock band. And then there was Kyla, the other cashier, barely 19, with an endless supply of TikTok dances and an even more endless supply of bad boyfriends. I worked mostly evening shifts, 4 to close. But after our night shift stalker quit without notice, Teresa asked if I could start covering nights twice a week. It wasn't great money, but the hours worked better for Mom, who'd been having trouble sleeping and liked knowing I was around during the day. The first few weeks of nights were boring, the kind of boring that eventually turned into routine. Unloading boxes, breaking down cardboard, restocking shelves. The hum of the fluorescent lights became my white noise. By 11 p.m., the store was always dead. Most customers after that were either late-night snack hunters or truckers from the nearby highway who just wanted coffee and somewhere bright to stretch their legs. But that changed the week before Thanksgiving last year. It was a Tuesday night. The air outside had that cold, brittle edge that Texas sometimes gets in late November, and the store was quieter than usual. Ray was in the back unloading boxes of Christmas decorations, muttering about how we should at least wait until after Thanksgiving to put up Santa plushies. Around 10:15, the bell above the door chimed. I glanced up from the register, expecting one of our regulars, but instead saw a woman I'd never seen before. She was tall, maybe 5 feet 9 inches, with long, perfectly straight hair, the color of ash blonde. Her clothes didn't look like they belonged in a Dollar Tree at all. Cream-colored sweater, designer jeans, expensive-looking boots. And she had this presence, the kind where you just knew she was used to being noticed. She didn't grab a basket, just started walking slowly through the aisles, glancing at things without picking them up. I watched her on the security monitor as she moved, first to seasonal decor, then to the beauty aisle, then to cleaning supplies. When she finally approached the register, she set down only one item, a small bottle of lavender-scented hand sanitizer. "Quiet night?" she asked, her voice light but sharp somehow. "Pretty much," I said, scanning the sanitizer. "Most people are home by now." She smiled faintly. "That's good, safer that way." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I just told her the total. She pulled out a $100 bill. "I don't think I can break this," I said, apologetic. Her eyes locked on mine. "It's fine. Keep it." I laughed awkwardly. I can't." But she had already turned and walked out, the sanitizer still on the counter. When I told Ray about it, he shrugged. "Probably some rich lady from out of town. Happens sometimes." Except, it didn't happen here. Midway Springs didn't get strangers like her, especially not ones who wandered into a Dollar Tree in the middle of the night. 2 nights later, she came back. This time she bought nothing, just walked the aisles again. She moved slower, like she was looking for something specific, but every time I glanced at the monitor, she was in a different section, as if trying to avoid staying in one camera's view for too long. When she passed by the register, she smiled at me again. "You ever notice?" she said. How a place can feel completely different after dark? I forced a chuckle. Yeah, I guess so. Things come out at night, she said softly. Things you don't notice in the day. Before I could ask what she meant, she walked out. That's when little things started happening. The back room door, which I knew I'd shut, would be wide open. Displays would be knocked over in the morning when I was sure they were fine the night before. And there was this faint smell in the store after closing, a strange metallic scent, almost like blood, that would come and go without warning. Teresa thought it was just the plumbing. Ray thought it was mice. But I noticed it always seemed stronger after the blonde woman had been in. The week of Thanksgiving she came in again. This time, right before close. She moved faster this time, almost frantic, and stopped at the register with a shopping basket full of random items. Nail polish, a pack of batteries, a bottle of bleach, and a roll of duct tape. I rang them up without saying much, but when I handed her the bag she leaned in slightly. "Don't be here alone on Friday night," she whispered. It sent a chill down my spine. "Why?" She just smiled that same faint smile and walked out. Friday night came anyway. Ray had called out, so it was just me and Kyla until she left at 10. By 11, I was alone. The store was silent, except for the hum of the lights and the occasional creak of the shelves settling. At 11:27, the front door chimed. It wasn't the blonde woman. It was a man, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black hoodie with the hood up. He didn't look at me, just started walking down the aisles. Something about the way he moved set my nerves on edge. Too fast, too deliberate. I pretended to check the register while watching him on the monitors. He went straight to the back of the store, past cleaning supplies, past paper goods, and stopped in the aisle near the stockroom door. Then he looked up at the camera. Not just looked, he stared, and then he smiled. I don't know what happened next except that I suddenly felt very aware of how far I was from the front door, and how alone I was. I picked up the phone to call Teresa, but before I could, the monitor flickered. When it came back, the man was gone. Except, the front door had never chimed again. My first instinct was to run to the front door, but my feet didn't move. I was still holding the phone, my fingers stiff and useless. The monitors flickered again. When they cleared, the aisle he'd been in was empty. I knew there was no way he could have gotten past me without triggering the door chime, which meant he was still inside. I forced myself to walk toward the back, telling myself I'd just check the stockroom and then lock up early. My footsteps sounded unnaturally loud on the linoleum. The stockroom door was closed now, but there was something wedged underneath, a small folded piece of paper. I bent down, hand trembling as I pulled it free. In neat, blocky handwriting it said, Friday. Midnight. I glanced up, and the door was slightly ajar. I hadn't touched it. That metallic smell hit me, stronger than ever, thick enough that I could taste it. My stomach turned. I backed away, trying to keep my eyes on the door and reach for my cell in my pocket. But when my hand closed around it, a voice, low, male, too close, spoke from behind the door. You stayed. I dropped the phone and bolted. The front door felt miles away, but I didn't stop moving until I was outside under the parking lot lights. My chest burned from the cold air, my hands shaking so hard I could barely get my keys into the lock of my car. When I finally looked back at the store, the front door was still locked, the lights still on. But in the glass just behind the register, the blonde woman was standing there. Her faint smile was gone. She was staring past me, toward the dark highway. Next morning, Teresa called to say the store's cameras had all been static after 11:25 p.m. No footage. No proof. I didn't tell her I quit. She figured it out when I never came back. Even now, if I drive past Midway Springs, I don't look toward the Dollar Tree, because I'm afraid I'll see her in the window, still waiting for whoever comes next. I never thought I'd still be working at a Dollar Tree at 29. When I moved back to Santa Rosa, California after my art degree in San Francisco, I told myself it was temporary. Just a paycheck until I could live fully off my art. But in California, temporary has a way of sticking. Rent in the Bay Area is absurd, and Santa Rosa wasn't much better. What started as a few months behind the register somehow stretched into years. Our Dollar Tree sat on a worn stretch of Sebastopol Road, squeezed between a liquor store with bars on the windows and a pawn shop that never seemed to have customers but was always open late. The parking lot asphalt was cracked, faded lines barely marking the spaces. Every night when I took the trash out, I could see the red neon pawn sign flicker against the dark. Half the letters burned out, making the word look like something else entirely. I grew up 3 hours south in a small coastal town, raised by two of the most committed hippies you'd ever meet. My parents, Mark and Sierra, were California to the bone. We had kombucha fermenting in the kitchen, wind chimes in every doorway, and a shelf of healing crystals that my mom swore had saved me from chickenpox when I was 5. I had a childhood full of open beaches and incense smoke, but not much preparation for the darker realities of people. They meant well, but their philosophy was simple. Fill your heart with love and the universe will take care of you. That worked fine until my mid-20s, when depression hit me like a freight train. Positive affirmations didn't cut it when I could barely get out of bed. Therapy did. So did antidepressants. And when I needed something to keep my mind busy, my art came back to me. Before depression, my work was bright. Oceans, flowers, portraits. But the darker my thoughts got, the darker my art became. I started drawing warped faces, surreal anatomy, half-human, half-creature figures. My Instagram, once a sleepy corner with maybe 200 followers, exploded. People loved the darkness. My pizza demon design, a horned creature drooling molten cheese, made me a few $100 on t-shirt sales alone. Still, it wasn't enough to quit Dollar Tree. I stocked shelves in the morning, ran the register in the afternoon, and sketched at night in my little studio apartment on West 3rd Street. That is, until the day Eli walked in. It was a Wednesday, slow and warm for late October. We had the front door propped open to let in a breeze, which only brought in the smell of asphalt and stale beer from the liquor store next door. I was at the register, slouched on my elbows, scrolling through Instagram when the door chime went off. He walked in slow, tall, lean, skin pale, almost gray under the fluorescence. His hair was dark, messy but not unkempt, like he'd done it on purpose. He didn't take a basket or cart, just moved through the aisles with his hands behind his back, studying the shelves like he was in an art gallery. After a few minutes, he came to the counter and set down a single item, a plain black sketchbook. "You draw?" His voice was low, deliberate. "Yeah," I said, scanning the barcode. "Mostly darker stuff." His eyes narrowed, not in suspicion, but in a way that made me feel like I'd just passed some invisible test. "That's good. Most people are too scared to be honest in their work." I gave a polite smile, feeling the faintest prickling at the back of my neck. He slid over a crumpled $10 bill, and as I reached for change, he said, "You should post more. Your page. It's the only one I've followed in years." The words froze me mid-motion. I hadn't told him my name, let alone my Instagram handle. "How?" I started, but he cut me off with a faint smile. "I'll be in touch." And then he walked out, left the sketchbook behind. That night I got a DM. "Eli does work. No posts, no followers. Profile picture was just a black square. Nice meeting you today. I have a proposition." Then, "I want to commission you. Name your price, no restrictions." Normally I'd be ecstatic. Commissions were gold for me. But the fact he'd tracked me down that fast unsettled me. Still, rent was due. I threw out $80, my safe low rate. "You're undervaluing yourself. I'll give you $1,200. Draw whatever comes to mind when you think about hunger." I stared at the screen. Hunger. I didn't ask what kind. I didn't want to. "Deal," I typed. For the next week I worked on it every night after my shift. It turned into a surreal figure, mouth stretched impossibly wide, teeth filed sharp, stomach sewn shut. I posted a censored preview to Instagram and sent Eli the full image privately. Within minutes, $1,200 hit my PayPal. No comments. Just beautiful. Real beauty is cruel, isn't it? From there, we messaged more often. Sometimes about art, sometimes about strange, almost philosophical thoughts. He told me he was an artist too, but in unusual mediums. He was vague, always making me coax information out of him. One night he sent, "Want to see my work?" I hesitated. My gut told me to ignore it, but curiosity won. Sure. A minute later, a disappearing Instagram photo appeared. I tapped it. It was a goat's head. Real, submerged in murky green fluid, the lips carved away to reveal its teeth, each etched with tiny symbols. Its eyes had been replaced with some kind of polished stones that caught the light. Is that real? Completely. Slaughterhouse find. Modified over months. Skulls are capsules. They hold every fear and thought the creature ever had. My stomach turned. I'm vegan. I've loved animals my whole life, but I didn't want to offend him. Not when he'd paid me so much. It's intense. A few days later, another disappearing photo came. I didn't want to open it, but the notification sat there like a dare. It was worse. A monkey's head. Altered so heavily I didn't even recognize it at first. Eyes replaced with black stones, mouth sewn shut but bulging, like something inside was trying to push its way out. I locked my phone. That one's too human for me. I can't look at stuff like that. Interesting you should say that. My dream is to work with a human skull. I've put ads out. No one takes me seriously. Time's running out. My hands went cold. And then, "Would you help me get one?" I never replied. Deleted the app. Removed every photo from my profile that might hint where I lived. At work, I started glancing toward the door every time the chime rang. One night, after closing, I was taking trash to the dumpster behind the store. The parking lot was empty, except for a tall figure standing under the streetlight at the far end. Still, watching. I went back inside and locked the door until the headlights of my rideshare lit the lot. I haven't seen him since. But sometimes, when I'm walking home, I feel eyes on my back. And I think about what he said, about skulls being capsules of everything a creature ever felt. I wonder if he's still waiting to add mine to his collection.